This is the Storied Outdoors, a podcast somewhere between Lewis and Tolkien and Lewis and Clark, finding clarity in the stories we tell and the adventures that shape us. Welcome to the Storied Outdoors. My name is Brad Hill, and I'm joined by my pal Brian Gill. And today, man, I'm joined by another one of my good friends, and this feels like a long time coming. I've talked to Blake Walters, Captain Blake Walters, into joining us on the podcast today. Blake's he's always told me he's a little mic shy. He doesn't really like to talk a lot, but we're going to get him going today. I'm really excited. He is joining us on the podcast. Blake is a good friend of mine. We've been spending time together, and he's been showing me the way on the waters down here. I've been learning lots from Captain Blake. And Blake is, man, you've done all kinds of fishing. I know you kayaked fish, and you kayaked fish tournaments and bass fishing and all manner of fishing. I don't think you're one of the fishiest people I think I know, as far as the species that you've caught and the way that you've caught them. But I know that fly fishing is something that you do really love. You're not, by your own admission, you're not a fly fishing snob. You like all kinds of fishing. You ain't afraid to throw a bait caster from time to time. I know you love that too, but you do love fly fishing, and that's something that you're leaning into with the guide service. But you do all kinds of guiding. But man, we're just glad you've joined us today. We want to highlight your new service and your new adventure. Thanks for joining us today, man.
I'm glad to be here. Thanks you guys for having me.
And for those of you who listen and who have seen the YouTube video that we recorded, you'll see Blake in that video as well. Blake's he's been kind of part of our circle, I guess, for the last several years. And the way that Brad described him whenever we were about to go on this fishing trip up to North Georgia, he was like, "You'll love Blake. He's the fishiest guy I know." We get up there and we're catching these little dinks. We're like really excited about a 7-inch rainbow trout. Blake's got this picture of this 25-inch fish. I'm like, the creek's not even that wide. How are you catching this thing?
Oh, we're just a day late.
Just a day late.
Yeah,
day
that's
late
my
and a dollar
story
short.
of my life. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
That's gonna be my autobiography. My other favorite thing about Blake is the way that he gets around. You always know it's Blake. In today's day and age, I'm so thankful that I put an awning on my Subaru, because now I can tell my Subaru apart from all the other black SUVs out in the parking lot. But you ain't never have to wonder if Blake's coming or not, because tell us about Wanda.
So Wanda's also known as the other woman by my wife, but she's a 1989 Volkswagen Vanagon camper. It's a full camper, has solar, a toilet, stove, sink, solar powered air conditioning. It's got a Golf GTI motor, so it's a little peppier than the original Vanagon, and it also has about 4 inches more lift than it came with from the factory. So it's kind of my grocery getter extraordinaire. It's the best daily driver ever.
The adventure mobile, man. That thing, it's
For
got
sure.
a refrigerator. It's always got him some cool drinks in there.
That's right.
No matter what, man. I love that thing so much, dude.
I agree, and it fits our lifestyle. I have a wife and 2 boys, and we absolutely love just beach days, going to the mountains, but just the little trips to the beach, being able to hop in there, got a place to change, lay down. It's really the perfect vehicle for us.
Yeah, I love that thing.
man. Blake, you do all kind of fishing. We talked about that, but is it safe to say primarily fly fishing is what you do?
Right now, yeah, but I tell you, I like all of it. I just moved into a camper while my wife and I are building a house, and I got to see all my fishing rods as I was emptying out the garage. And it was a little bit, I felt guilty at on one end of the spectrum, but at the same time, it's like, I've had the pleasure of learning how to use a fly rod, but also learning how to fish for deep drop species with electric reels. And and crappie fishing with 10-foot spinning rods. It's just, again, I'm very blessed to have had a life and grow up in an area where you can do all that from the same county.
Mhm.
Mm.
It's really an awesome. We live in an awesome place, or Brad and I do
Absolutely.
at least.
That's right. Can you tell us about where you grew up, Blake?
I grew up on the Mississippi Alabama line, a little community uh, north of Grand Bay. There was nothing. There was one four-way stop, and I rode my bicycle to all the little creeks and ended up actually stocking my parents' pond from my bicycle and a 5-gallon bucket. And that's kind of where the fly fishing love started. An old yellow eagle claw,
Yes.
3 weight, 7 foot. I mean, just probably a $20 fly rod, but that and a pack of popping bugs, and I was sold.
Mm.
Is that so? Did you teach yourself to fly fish? How did you get
Uh,
introduced to that?
I think I got a book at a yard sale actually,
Yes.
um, and
That's
it didn't
awesome.
tell you a whole lot other than just it had pictures with the basic strokes and you know 10 and 2 or whatever those angles that all the technical fly fishermen know. But it did. It walked you through the basics, and I'm sure it was atrocious. I wish we had video of me and some of my buddies out there, in farm ponds whipping that line around. But we caught fish, and it did. It kind of spurred the love for just watching a bite happen, seeing the fish come up and hit a bug, and it got me fired up,
Yeah.
and it hadn't stopped yet.
Well, it's like our old pal Jimbo says, man, there's nothing better than where that popper was.
That's right.
Oh man, what's is that some of your earliest memories of of fishing
Oh
in general?
no, I mean honestly, my dad scuba dived
Oh,
with
cool.
and he had my godfather, and they would go out offshore. And I remember being very young, riding along on some of those trips, stuck in the boat with back then it was, my dad did not know the technical side of fishing at all. So we'd have a pin senator with straight 100-pound mono and some cut squid. And that was it. Like there was no lure fishing, no, the knots were not anything special. It was,
Whatever
if you don't,
worked.
yeah, if you can't tie a knot, tie a lot. So you just,
That's
it
what
was,
my
it was
tippet
just,
looks like.
yeah, it was, it was just a very messy, raw form of fishing. But again, we hooked some big stuff and it fueled the flame.
Oh
And,
yeah.
and I never wanted to do anything else. I remember watching the Bassmaster Classic on TV as a kid thinking, I want to fish when I grow up. Like that's what I want to do. If these guys can do it, why can't I do it?
There you
Hmm.
go.
It
Were
took me a while
were
to
there
get
any of
there.
those? I'm sorry, what'd you say?
I said it took me a while to get there, but here I am.
There you are. Were there any of those guys that you looked up to in particular?
Oh, Hank Parker,
Yeah.
um, Bill Dance, obviously, Jimmy Houston, all those guys
I felt like those
are
guys,
legends.
they were always in on TV, and like I felt like they were in my living room, and just I can hear the theme songs in my head,
Oh
when you're
yeah.
Yep.
saying their names. What was Jimmy Houston? Was was he the one that say "All Sun" or something like that, or
That's Jimmy Houston. Yeah.
Jimmy Houston and uh, Hank Parker? He would come to Eufaula a lot, and so he was a figure around town. Eufaula would have the Bassmaster groups there, and Bill Dance, man, his blooper reels would have me rolling.
Hysterical.
Well, and
Holy
see, I
cow!
never saw those. I did never saw the blooper reels until way like into adulthood.
Oh
I
man,
just I watched his little, I guess it was Saturday mornings on Outdoor Channel or whatever,
yeah.
how to fish a spinnerbait, and I was watching all these knots he was teaching and soaking that in. And again, I didn't know what I was doing. My dad didn't fish. My mom brothers fished a lot, but they were live baiters. They didn't waste time and money on lures, and it's
Just some bait. Oh, they
yeah,
need.
crickets, worms, bobbers.
Hmm.
That's awesome.
That's but Bill Dance and those other guys again kind of opened up that world of sport fishing
Yeah.
versus grocery fishing, and I was intrigued for sure.
Yeah. Then you did a lot of kayak fishing. That was a big thing for you for a long time, wasn't it?
It was I fished collegiate fishing. I did collegiate bass fishing in Nashville for a small Christian school called Trevecca. Did that for 4 years, and then once I got out of school and I stayed in Nashville, I had a very close friend that we bass fished tournaments together. Um, but once moving from Nashville back to Lower Alabama, I was lost. I was like, man, what do I do? That I don't
Right.
have a boat. Uh, do I bass fish? Do I get a bass boat? Do I get a center console? Like, which direction should I go? And some friends had some cheap, $250 kayaks, and we went and hopped in them and caught a bunch of speckled trout and flounder and white trout. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to go get one of these. Well, I don't do anything halfway. 6 months later, I was sponsored, and I'm helping on the design team for Ocean Kayak and Old Town Canoe, and
Hmm.
got pretty plugged in with those guys, and did that for 7 or 8 years, all while still offshore fishing and stuff with my dad. But we caught everything from crappie to 200-pound tarpon out of those kayaks, and it was a pretty great vehicle of choice, while I was trying to find where I really wanted to be as an angler.
Hmm. We talk a lot about on this podcast, we talk about finding clarity in the stories we tell and the adventures that shape us. Is there a story from growing up, or even as a adult or becoming an adult, that you found yourself kind of returning to, where you found clarity? You it started to kind of make sense to you on the water.
I hate trying to pinpoint one story.
Yeah.
um as far as making the decision to do this as a career, it would have been, I kind of had some tough times with a previous employer, and I won't go down that route, but it wasn't working out. He wasn't able to make my paychecks all the time.
Hmm.
So I started looking at other options, and I did some drone photography stuff for a while and still do. But I was taking people fishing. Brad's one of the guys I was taking fishing at the time, and I just kind of fell in love with standing on the back of a polling skiff and pushing people around. And I thought I could do this. This is something I could do every day and
Hmm.
never get tired of it. And there's not one story in particular that gave me that clarity, but multiple trips with close friends, good anglers, even bad anglers, that truly I felt like God was telling me this is what you should be doing.
Hmm.
And at the same time, my wife and I, we own a hair salon. The hair salon started doing extremely well also. So it gave me the opportunity financially to say, you know what, we're going to try it. And so far, our needs have been met.
There
And
you go.
that's all I could ask for.
The thought of kind of finding what you're good at and finding a job that allow you to do that and something that you really enjoy, that's a luxury in some cases. But what is it about the guiding and being on the water with people that brings you more joy? Is it being just out there? Is it a client catching that fish? Is it connecting with a trophy? Which one would you say is like, man, that really is what fires me up?
Well, in particular, our area, we're known for having pretty good inshore fishing. I mean, speckled trout, white trout, flounder, redfish. Uh, our delta is vast and there's so much life there, but people don't sight fish here. They don't get that opportunity to watch a redfish come and inhale a fly or a
Mm.
lure or whatever. But that's what gets me fired up. When a guy for the first time is sitting there watching a redfish eat shrimp and crabs, and he's got his nose down cruising the bank, and that client sees that fish, makes a perfect cast to that fish, and tricks him into eating, and you're watching the whole thing. That that gets me fired up every time. But I would pay my clients to let me do that every day. it's 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 just an awesome experience, and people that have never seen it, they get fired up.
Mm.
It really is a lot of fun, and I've got another close friend that Brad knows as well, named Rod Kinsey, and he's on my boat a lot, and he's always like, "Man, you sure you don't want me to pull you around?" And it's pretty rare that I do. I enjoy that back of the boat experience where I'm leading that person to the fish, and
Mhm.
it's a lot of fun.
Mm.
You've caught some massive fish. When you look back, what's one of your favorite like big? And I think I've heard you tell stories about like catching something in a kayak that's like you fought it for a while because it pulled you around in a kayak because it's not like you got an anchor down or something in a
Yeah,
kayak.
the biggest I've caught big tarpon down on 7 Mile Bridge in the kayak. I've caught big giant black drum, jack crevalles, bull reds, all from the kayaks. But the one big fish that's still pretty special to me was my first Alabama tarpon, and I've caught a few since, and I'd caught tarpon all over Florida, but I was pretty bummed out. I'd fished for years trying to catch an Alabama waters
Right.
tarpon,
Yeah.
and it wasn't happening. And I went to pick my wife and kids up just to go to the sandbar after fishing one day. And my wife said, "You know what? Let's go back out there and try to just try it one more time." And sure enough, hooked a giant. It was over 6.5 feet long, big fish. And my kids at the time were like
You're
10,
like a
10.
dinosaur.
Yeah, my kids were like 9 and 5 at the time, or
You like eat them.
8 and 5. Yeah, and it just sharing that experience with them is probably one of the coolest experiences I've had with a big fish.
Yeah, I mean you can't even get that out, I mean out of the water, right?
You're not legally allowed to remove
Right.
them from the
Yeah, yeah,
water,
you're not supposed
but
to.
yeah, that I've got a picture of it, and I'm holding the mouth of it at the front of the boat, and just tails at the back of the boat. It's
Insane.
pretty awesome
And
experience.
their scales are massive, right? I mean, they're
Yeah,
like big
they're
silver
like an
dollars almost.
Oreo. Yeah, like
Yeah.
about the size of an Oreo or bigger,
What an incredible creature too, man. Just
for
powerful.
sure. Absolutely.
And
Get the
that's like,
family
is
to
that?
see that one. That's great.
I bet those boys
Yeah.
were their eyes big when they saw that.
My youngest was still he was 4 or 5, I don't remember, but he was screaming because he thought I was going to get pulled in the water, and he said, "I'm not going to have a daddy anymore."
I don't want
He said
daddy to go.
the fish kept jumping, and just seeing those boys experience that and experiencing that with me, and that
Oh,
was
that's
my
special.
first one, and it was special. And I could go on a list of special fish, but that's one of the top ones for sure.
I bet. I mean, and again, when I show people, pictures of redfish, the two things that I hear is, "You caught that on a fly rod," or that's in Alabama, that's here. And I was like, "Yeah, that's here. We have all kinds of great fish in Alabama, especially right here." That's why I'm still like, even today, I went over to Bass Pro Shops to get something, and I was like, "Oh, I'll walk over there in the fly section. Ain't gonna be there's no one over there, and it's just so dismal, and made me sad because Peter's shop, he closed his shop down, and we just don't really have a real fly. I mean, there's a fly shop, McCoy Outdoors, but nobody really like they're not passionate about it. And man, I wish there was a fly shop here because man, there is so much great water to fly fish.
I got some good news for you.
Oh
Um,
man,
and,
breaking
and
news.
uh, Sam Sumlin is opening Community Fly Supply in Orange Beach next
Okay.
week.
There you go.
Oh, that's
A little
We'll be here
exciting.
bit,
next
a little
week.
something.
Yeah. So
So
a
when
little
you're down at the
plug.
beach, you'll have a
Yeah.
spot.
Yeah. A little plug for Sam. Uh, and the photos I've seen looks like it's going to be pretty full featured fly
Good.
shop. So I'm
Well,
excited.
that's great.
I was sad to see Peter go because he was close to the house.
Right.
But
Exactly. Same.
but I agree, and I tell people all the time the hardest decision for me around here: what do I fish for tomorrow?
Well, yeah. Yeah. What
I
am I
mean,
going to target?
like I love redfish, and right now the redfish is on. They're on fire. The last 5 or 6 trips I've had have just been
Yep.
some of the best ever. But the crappie bite will be turning on here when it cools off a little bit. Bowfin, they're one of the most fun fish to catch. Brad, you went
As
and
a
fished for them with me.
freaky looking fish, man.
They are, and
Golly.
just that
What's
is
the other
such.
name for those things? What's the other? Is it Grinnell?
Well, Grinnell's the local name. Shoepick is what the Cajuns call them.
Yeah.
Bowfin. There's a bunch of different names, but they're
Prehistoric looking fish, man.
they're awesome fish to target, and it's again you can do all of it really within 20 miles, and
Yeah.
you can use the same boat to get all of them.
Yeah.
No special equipment required.
Now,
When-
I will say that one place that you took me to get to fish for those bowfin was up in the Delta, and I don't know if I think it was the way you said it was. I don't think any glitter rockets are going to come up in here.
That's right. That's right. We had to ramp
We had
the
to
boat
seesaw.
over a few.
We had to seesaw your boat over a log that was exposed as we were leaving, and the tide was going out the whole time, and so the little creek that we came in on was high going in. We kind of bumped stuff going in, but when we came out, the water had gone down significantly, and we came to this fully exposed tree across the water, and so Blake took his little skiff and ran it up on it, and I went to the front of the boat, and my big self seesawed that thing, got a little cantilever that thing over.
Perfect. It's perfect. And I've had to do that by myself. And you talk about
I'd
some
actually like
Bill
to see
Dance
that.
bloopers.
Yeah. But we got out of there. I was like, man, we're going to be back here with, some. And again, if you've never been in the upper Delta before, if you've ever driven to Mobile on I-65, you've driven over the bridge over, the Mobile River Delta system, and you look out there, and it is just a vast, vast area. And you can be riding around, and that's where we've duck hunted before over this past season. And we would be motoring through these areas, and you would think, it wouldn't surprise me one bit if I came around the corner and there's some undiscovered tribe dude standing there in a loincloth and a spear. It wouldn't seem out of place because it looks like you're truly in the middle of some jungle somewhere. It's incredible. It is an incredible, incredible place.
It really is.
And it's right here in our backyard.
And I don't spend a lot of time up there with clients, and I would by request probably, just because I love it so much. But it is a hidden gem. People don't realize how expansive it is, first of all, but also the diversity. I mean, there's a PBS special from 2 or 3 years ago, or maybe more, but it was called America's Amazon, and it's pretty awesome how diverse this Mobile Tensaw Delta is.
Mm-hmm. Really cool. What is there a particular? We've talked about this before. Is there a particular story that you look back on and you thought, man, I didn't think we were going to make it out of that one alive?
There's a few.
Anytime you spend any amount of time on the water, there's going to be some of those stories.
Oh yeah, I mean there's a few. I remember when I was a teenager, my dad, again being a scuba diver, and we didn't always have the nicest, newest equipment, but we ran out. I don't know, with one of our pastor's sons, and we went probably 50 miles, 60 miles. And after running in for 2 or 3 hours on our way home, we realized the compass was broken, and we had been running due south.
Oh no.
The entire time, and we were already way south. I mean, we were already way further than we should have been in a 19-foot center console. But we had no GPS. We had nothing, and We finally, after a very, very long ride and running on fumes, started seeing chunks of land. We didn't know where we were. It didn't look anything like what we were used to seeing. And it was the southern end of the Chandeleur Islands. And we had launched out of Mobile Bay. So we had to sneak into somewhere in Mississippi and get some fuel.
Oh my
Whoa,
goodness.
that is a long way.
It was a long, long day. And that, that one ended extremely well. There's been others where there was severe thunderstorms and 10-foot seas and
Mm.
Coast Guard being called to tow us in because we felt endangered for our lives. But there's several. Again, a lot of them I was pretty young and don't know all the details or remember
Right.
all the details. But recently, and I'm going to knock on some wood, it's been good.
What's that, Michael Scott? I'm not superstitious, but
I'm a little stitious.
I'm a little stitious.
That's right.
Yeah, recently.
Well, recently I've had some minor engine. I had a minor engine trouble, but that, like you said, if you spend any time on the water,
Yeah.
it's going to happen. And fortunately, there was this awesome angler that rolled in. He towed us in, and while he was towing us in, threw out some lines to troll and caught some fish
There you
while
go.
he was dragging the boat in.
That's like the angler's version of like, if life gives you lemons, make lemonade. It's like,
Yeah,
you got to be towed, might as well troll.
Can't
That's
catch a
right.
fish unless your line's in the water.
That's right. That's right.
Oh,
Blake,
man.
we had a fun time around the campfire together, up in the, camping and doing that fishing trip with the video that we did together. We told some stories there. What if this is a digital campfire that we're around right now on this podcast? What is a story that's always your go-to? One that you get a good rise out of people. What's the story that you would tell if we were around a campfire?
So again, there's a bunch, but since you brought up that spot, about 30 feet from that campfire is the river, and I'm not going to name the name. But my
The
first trip,
undisclosed location
yeah,
somewhere in Tennessee.
sort of. But by that campfire, there's this beautiful stream, and I was green. I'd never caught a rainbow trout on a fly rod. I'd only ever caught them on those main thoroughfares, on the side of the road where everybody goes with, rooster tails. And I think I even doing that, I'd only caught two. So I had picked up a Cabela's 3-weight 7.6 combo, just
Like a
the
bargain
cheapest.
bin, like a bargain
Yeah,
bin.
yeah, like
Yeah.
$100, cheapest
What do
of
they
cheap.
call them, or the bargain cave or whatever? I always go looking to see what they got in there, man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it was just the cheapest thing ever. It had line already spooled on it, had a plastic clamshell with some woolly boogers and some squirmy wormies and egg patterns.
What else do you need?
Yeah, the basics. Well, and again, I didn't have a clue what I was doing. The salesman sold me this combo, and I said, well, I need a net too. So he sold me this little net and some 5X tippets, or pre-made leaders, tapered
Yeah.
leaders. So I head up to the mountains. I didn't know where I was going. I was in my Subaru. It was before Wanda was introduced to me. And
Where you met the other
yeah,
woman.
Before you met
before I
Wanda.
met Wanda. But I go to this dirt road and just start driving dirt roads, and I found a first come first serve campsite, and it was the very first one. I pull over, get out, and just start fishing. It's 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and I walk down to the river, and I see this absolute tank of a rainbow trout, and I didn't know what I was doing. I start slinging the fly right in front of it. I'm tangled in the trees. I'm so excited that I'm making every mistake possible. Well, the fish, of course, takes off. It sees me. I had to go in and get my fly out of the bushes. But I went back to my Subaru and I grabbed a bag of beef jerky and a granola bar, and I hiked downstream down the dirt road and entered the stream so that I could work my way back up and see if I could see that fish again. Well, after 15, 20 minutes, sure enough, that fish came right back to that spot where it had been sitting. And there was a brown trout headbutting that fish's gut to knock eggs out of it
Hmm.
to eat the rainbow's egg. So this was a big female full of eggs. And I took that Cabela's 3 weight with 5X tippet and cast that woolly booger in front of that trout's face, and it absolutely choked it. I mean, just up started running upstream, and I'm in these $38 waders. You know, I'm tripping, I'm falling, I'm getting water in my waders. The fish literally jumped up like a 3 foot waterfall. And again, if you guys remember that campsite,
Oh yeah.
it's where the creek makes a 90-degree bend right below the log jam.
Yeah.
It jumped up that waterfall and had me running all up through the log jam, putting my rod under sticks. I had 2 big tears in my waders. My knees are bleeding. I'm falling. I'm making a fool of myself.
You like Brad Pitt this thing upstream
I
from
mean,
the river runs through it.
Oh,
Exactly.
this was far from Brad Pitt. It could have been a Bill Dance blooper reel for sure. But I finally get this fish close to me, and the net the guy had sold me was about 6 inches too short for the
Oh my
fish to
God.
fit in. It was
Oh,
fish.
that's amazing.
Fish ended up being almost 29 inches, but I had to tackle it. I had to tackle it onto the bank there, and I was so defeated right before that. Like I was just worn out. I didn't have the proper equipment, but that fish still is what it kind of fanned the fly fishing flame. At the same time, it got me in love with the mountains,
Oh yeah.
streams. It just got me fired up on all of it. And that's really the one story that kind of seems like it changed my fishing path over the last
Yeah.
decade or so.
What a special place.
It really is. Really
What do you
is.
think? What do you think it was about that fish or that
Well,
experience?
it
What
was
part of it?
it was all firsts. I had
Mm.
never caught a fish in a stream like that, like really. Uh, Being from the coast and then bass fishing, there wasn't fast moving water. Fly fishing was only in farm ponds and roadside creeks.
Yeah.
It was never rainbow trout. It was never that big. It was
Yeah. 29 inches is a big fish.
it was a big rainbow trout with 5X tippet as well. Like I had never used 5X tippet. Like if it ain't 20 pound, I'm not using it. That's how it was before. And it just the excitement and the challenge and the adversity almost. Like it was hard. It's way harder than chunking a treble hooked rooster tail on 15-pound line into a pond. I mean, it's just, and I think that's what I love about the mountains too, is it is polar opposite of what we have down here. As far as fishing goes, it's refreshing. But then vice versa, once I do that for 5 or 6 days, I'm so glad to be back at the beach or in the marsh or in the Delta.
Yeah, I love all of it. I'm the same way, man. There's just nothing quite like any of those, situations. But I catching something like that on a fly rod, be it a redfish or a big trout. To me, there's nothing quite like it. And I'm like you. I like all of it. I don't mind, getting a bucket full of shrimp and throwing some live shrimp with a spinning reel. And my son, loves it, and it's fun to catch a bunch of fish doing that. But there's something special about, catching something on a fly rod, especially, something that's unexpected. Because you're right, in that stream, you don't expect something that big to come out of it. Because it just doesn't look like it could hold a fish like that, but it certainly can.
Yeah. And,
I've never caught one. I've certainly spooked a couple of those.
Well,
seen a big shadow run out of there going, oh man.
I don't think that all of mine added up together was 29 inches.
I've been blessed to have gone up, and every trip had at least one fish over 20 inches from that area. My son and I did another trip up there, and I'm going to try to do it yearly with both of my boys. But just seeing him, he's 11. It was my oldest son. Seeing him experience that, whereas here at home, he hops on his bicycle and goes and tries to catch sharks at the end of our road here. And so for him, it's a totally different experience. And he's starting to get that flame fanned underneath him as well, and just falling in love with it. And I think showing him the different types of fishing and the different experiences you can have all in the same sport, it's really getting him fired up. Because yeah, that bucket of shrimp and white trout, or crickets and worms, that's the gateway drug. But when they see that redfish come and inhale a fly or a swim bait, or a rainbow trout chase a streamer down and inhale it, that really, I think for anybody, a kid, adult, whatever, if that doesn't get you fired up, you need to go start knitting or something.
Some old country boys say if that don't crank your tractor, it ain't got no gas in it.
That's the truth.
And they don't let you fire your woods wet.
Well, you would, yeah. I mean, I love all those, man. They're so good, man. What you talked a little bit about what spurred you on to in recent days to like become a guide. What was the captain's license? I remember talking to you through the process of captain's license. For those that have never heard, like, what is that process like? What is the process like for down here to get a captain's license?
Well, there's a couple of ways you can do it.
Uh-oh. Did he freeze up for you, Brian?
Yeah, he's frozen.
Vendor called
Right.
C School.
All right, yeah. Blake, you froze up on me there.
Oh, sorry.
A little bit. So let's
I'll
go
start
back to
over.
go back to the very beginning.
Yeah.
So we're glad to have you on the show, Blake.
Sorry.
Oh man. So I'd
Let me
ask,
start over
like,
again.
what is that process for becoming a guide? Not just a guide, but getting that captain's license.
Okay, so there's two paths you can take. You can either study and go through the U.S. Coast Guard yourself and go take the test, but there's a vendor called C School that offers a couple of different programs. You can do a 6 consecutive day program where you go and study and learn and take the test, but they also offer for more like recreational minded captains 2 weekends. And so I went and did 2 weekends over in Fort Walton Beach. You learn from fog signals to what blinky lights mean what signs mean what, how to navigate without a GPS. You learn a lot, and it's a lot to learn in a 6 day period, but totally worth it. I've
Mhm.
been on the water my whole life and still learned a ton through that program. And
That's
they
cool.
kind of prepare your packet to submit to the Coast Guard for you
Oh,
as
nice.
well. And for what it is, it makes it kind of headache free. And if you're willing to put the work in, it's very, not very difficult.
Yeah. So, what is your license? Like, you can do more than just like an inshore, right? So, because you
Yeah.
can do offshore stuff and everything, right?
Yeah. As long as I think I'm limited to like 110 miles, and 6 anglers.
Yeah.
Uh,
And then boat size is a thing too, right?
I don't believe so. I think as long
Okay.
as you're underneath 6 anglers, you're able to captain any non Coast Guard inspected vessel.
I see.
I'm not really interested in doing anything very big, but
Yeah.
uh, I do love the skiff, and I also have a 25-foot boat that I run some trips on. But I tell you, the skiff is what I'm good at and what I love, and that's really what I try to promote
Yeah.
the most.
How many people can you take on a skiff?
I will do 2 anglers
Mm-hmm.
and let them trade off, just
Yeah.
because fly fishing on a 16-foot John boat, basically,
Yeah.
2 guys, it gets pretty tight.
Yeah.
It can be done if it's the right guys, but most of the time, if I have two anglers, I just ask them to take turns, and I don't charge for two anglers. I might, depending on the season and how busy I am, I think I charge $100 extra for an additional angler.
Mm.
But because they're having to take turns, I don't go crazy.
There's a lot of people who listen love to take guided trips. They got a group of friends they want to take down. Maybe this may be their first time to experience the Delta. Um, how can people connect and go fishing with you? And like, what types of trips do you offer? Is it offshore, inshore? What are some things that if somebody's listening there and they want to do this trip, how could they do it? And what would they get to do?
Uh, I try to cater it 100% to each angler. I don't have a blanket trip. And because of that, I don't do online booking. I don't, I would rather the people either message me on social media. The social media is Fairhope Fly Guy, and then, or call me and just let's chat. If you want to go chase bowfin in the Delta, let's do it. If you've got a party of six, half of them are kids and people that aren't necessarily want to fish all day, we'll take the jet boat out. They can lay out, play in the sand, and we'll do a wading trip and kind of a sandbar, grass flats combo trip. I want to cater it to each person because I've had some really poor guided trip experiences
Mhm.
because the guide didn't care what I wanted to do or what my expectation, and he would have been better off either recommending someone else or catering to me a little more specifically. So that's what I try to do.
I
Yeah,
love that.
I think those kinds of experiences help people like you and other guys that we've had on here who are guides make it a better experience for the customer. I mean, it's bad when you have a bad guide, honestly. But if you have one that's just being a hospitable and just, going above and beyond to serve their client and to make it a great experience for them, that's one thing if you got a bad client. But like if if you're doing the work to be show hospitality, that's going to make a great trip. And I appreciate hearing that. That's refreshing to hear that.
Well, and that's, I mean, that's another reason, honestly, I wanted to do it. There are some great, fantastic guides here, but there's only, I think, three of us now that are really fly focused.
Mm.
Hmm.
And we've got a lot of shoreline and a lot of water. And there's probably, I, I wouldn't, I wouldn't say there's less than 750 charter captains in our area. I mean, there's a ton between Mississippi and Florida line. There's everything from crappie, bass fishing trips, uh, speckled trout focus trips, flounder focus trips. There's even a guy doing shark charters now for land-based shark fishing. I mean, there's so many guys, but only a few of us are focused on fly fishing, and I want to keep it focused on that really. But if somebody wants to go out and experience, like I said, the Delta or do the trip where Brad and I were hopping over logs, you know, back in the jungle, basically, we can do it.
Yeah, there was more than one alligator seen that day.
For sure. But that's, I think clients need that. I've had guides that were very good at that, but I've also had a guide that, after talking to me for an hour on the phone, knowing I wanted to fly fish for tarpon and peacock bass in Puerto Rico, did not bring a single fly rod or fly on the boat, and he chunked dead ballyhoo off the back the whole day. You know, and we didn't catch anything actually, but
Woof.
that I feel like that communication between the guide and the client is important, and I want to focus on that more than anything, and not just have a basic redfish site fishing charter blah, this price. I'd rather, is that what you want to do, or do you want to go try to catch sheephead or something unique?
Yeah, some people may not even know what the options are.
Yeah, well, and that's, I would rather talk to them and find out what they expect or don't expect.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Or if it's God's choice, yeah, let's go 7 inches of water and try to find some redfish that'll inhale a fly. Or if the red fishing's not good right now, let's run up a tidal creek and throw bass bugs.
Mm.
Just I'd rather have that conversation instead of them expecting to catch. I had a guy call me and he wanted to catch tarpon, and I said, man, it's possible. We've caught a few tarpon in the Gulf this year, but you don't book a 4 hour trip and guarantee a tarpon. I mean,
It's not like
that's
the
a
zoo, you know?
yeah, it's a fish you got to work for.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
redfish, I mean, bass, speckled trout, you got to work for those too, but you work a lot less.
Mm.
It's your chances are higher.
Yeah, that's what's, it's been fun to learn from you is down here, like there is so much water and it's real easy to get overwhelmed by the amount of water and like knowing where to go or where, where the redfish are going to be, is a challenge because from, throughout the year, they're in different places. Now we know where they're moving into for the month of October, right?
Yeah.
But they're not always there because there's been a many time we've gone to look and they weren't there and they were somewhere else.
Well, and even within a region, like uh, the day after you and I went and did so well, or maybe 2 days after you and I went back and there wasn't a fish to be seen anywhere on that same point, that same
Yeah.
area. They disappeared. Now I ran 15, you know, minutes in another direction and we found them.
Mm.
Yeah.
But the very next week, they were back to where they were when you and I went and looked.
Yeah.
Just it's time on the water, experience, reading the tides. It all matters. It all pays off.
Do you keep a
And
log of like when you catch fish, what was going on that day? I know a lot of guys do that.
to an extent, a lot of times if I have a killer day, what I do is I take all the fish pictures, but wherever I'm at, I'll screenshot the tide and weather of that day so that when I go back in my, in iPhones, you can look at location based
Oh yeah.
uh, photos, and I'll find photos in that location and look at that screenshot, and it'll show me the date, it'll show me the
Yep.
temperature, shows me the
Right.
tides, shows me everything, the wind direction.
Because all that matters,
It
by the
matters.
way.
Uh, the tide, noticed.
Oh, Elon letting us down.
Oh no, did it do it again?
Yeah, it's okay. But the tide, I mean, we're talking about how like the tide really matters, and or temperature, all that really has a profound effect on what the fish are doing and where they are.
Yeah, absolutely. Like lately, the if the tide isn't high enough for the redfish to really get in there to find the shrimp and the crabs, the redfish are much harder to find. They've
Yeah,
got to have that water there to chase the bait they want right now.
yeah. How have you? And we've talked a few times on the boat about this, but what are some ways that you have seen God's goodness or His truth and beauty in your experiences out on the water?
Man, I don't know. I always notice just creation in general, how phenomenal it is and how beautiful it is. But really, where we're at in life right now, my wife and I, and we've seen him open so many doors that we didn't even push on. Like
Hmm.
people talk about God allowing a door to open. He's swinging them open lately. Uh,
Nice.
it's it's there's no question what path he wants us to take, and that's been a blessing,
Mm,
um, for sure. Because we hadn't discussed it on here yet, but um, my wife and I decided probably 3 months ago we wanted to sell our house become 100% debt free, and move into a camper while we build a house with the proceeds. And a week later, we bought an RV. A week after that, the house is listed. It sold the first day that we had an open house. Like,
Mm.
just, and it was just like, holy smokes! We prayed about it and it happened, and we didn't even have to. Like I said, we didn't even have to push the door. They just all the doors were swinging wide open for us, and it's been so good to kind of see his provision there and see how he's going to allow us to be debt free, and both being small business owners. That's pretty it's pretty freeing, because there's a lot of financial stress as small business owners, and
Mm-hmm.
that we really feel like that's his guidance and his will for our lives, that he's opened up that door to provide us uh, that freedom and financial stability.
Mm. That's great,
I
man.
love that. I think that's all of that is just showing the goodness of God and the kindness of God and, his provision for us. That's that's awesome. You're always living an adventure, especially living out of an RV right now.
Well, and when I say RV, and I should have given you guys the tour before we started recording here, but
Yeah, this ain't the
it's
Vanagon.
no,
No,
this ain't the
yeah, and I
Vatican.
didn't picture that, not with a family
It's
of
it's
family living in there.
and with my mechanical requirements, I want everything old so that I know how to work on it.
Yeah.
But we bought a 1980s Beaver motor coach. It's 40 feet long. It has a jacuzzi tub in it that's big enough for two adults. Um, it's huge. It's a big Class A, basically a semi truck type rig.
Hmm.
Um, so we're comfortable, but it was old and it was affordable, and I can work on it. I like being a mechanic as a hobby, and so it's been fun to turn wrenches on something different.
Yeah,
That's
you
cool.
never cease to amaze me in what you know how to do. Like dropping the motor out of something and completely rebuilding it. Or how many times did you do the motor and the transmission on like the Vanagon on Wanda? Like
uh,
you are intimate with Wanda.
oh yeah. Unfortunately, I really didn't understand the cooling system in Wanda when I first got her, so I blew the motor up pretty quick. And I learned how to put a motor together and build it. And after I put it in, I had done one little thing wrong,
No.
and it blew up.
Oh,
So I had to. So I but in my head, I knew, oh, that's what I did, and it encouraged me, because I being able to diagnose it just based on the outcome.
Yeah.
It was like you put a puzzle together, and you're missing that one piece, but you find it under the rug. It's like, yes,
I know
you
where
get,
it is.
yeah, like that's the feeling I get when I'm wrenching on stuff. And the transmission, same deal. Transmission went out on me one day, and I knew exactly what it was before I even got out of the van.
hmm.
Like, I knew it was the pump because it had four neutrals. And by the by the time the tow truck had got me back, and a AAA premium membership is obviously a must for me, but after I got it
Yes,
back to
sir,
my
Mr. Walters.
yeah, it is bad.
You again?
How's the family?
Yeah, his name's Tony. Uh, his truck is called Purple Rain. But
There we go.
anyway, by the time Tony had backed me into my shop, I already had the part. I was, I knew what I needed to do, and 2 hours later, had the transmission back in fixed, and I would rather that, have an old vehicle that I know how to work on, than some computer driven, you know, modern vehicle.
Hmm.
My backup car is a 1953 Nash that's got a one barrel carburetor, points
Nice.
ignition. It's as analog as it gets. And you have to work on that. Like, you have to work on those cars. And if you don't know how to work on them, you're going to be in pretty bad shape. So I've had to learn a lot. And honestly love it. Wouldn't change it for a thing. I can fix everything on both of those cars with a Leatherman, pretty much.
Nice.
So
and have.
and have.
Yeah.
Well, what's your
Yeah,
next
man.
adventure, Blake?
Well, we're trying to slow down a little bit since we are in an RV. Don't really want to go do a lot of camping at the moment,
It's
but
called
We're
living.
currently camping.
yeah, we're permanent campers. But we actually have planned a 2-week trip from Christmas through New Year's to see all the national parks out west through New Mexico, Arizona, Utah, possibly Colorado on the way back.
I love
And
it.
that was, instead of doing Christmas gifts, since again, we don't have a lot of room for Christmas gifts, we told our boys, and my wife and I have agreed that we would each pick one excursion on that trip. And I'm really fired up because both my boys love
Going fishing. Yeah.
So we'll probably do 3 days of fishing, and maybe, I don't know, the wife might pick a spa day or something. But
That sounds
Nice.
fantastic. Yeah, we've
You
been
gonna
trying
put
to
some
hit up the
Christmas-
national parks, and that there's a stretch right there through Utah where you can get about 5 or 6 of them.
Yeah, man. Looks
That's
incredible.
fantastic.
yeah, we're
gonna put-
my wife's family lives in Central Texas, so we're gonna go there for Christmas, and that'll be our kind of launch point,
Nice.
and leave from there and do the loop.
Dude, are you going to
the
do
west.
Christmas lights on the RV? I just feel like there's a glorious opportunity to go full
We actually-
Griswold on that
We
thing.
actually are not taking the RV. We're gonna take our 4Runner. My wife has a 4Runner, and we want to maybe do some of the trails out in Moab, and there's a couple that go down towards the bottom of the Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
You can actually drive up into the Grand Canyon.
Oh, yeah.
So we're probably going to take the 4Runner.
That's cool.
And reliability wise,
You're at least going to decorate it for Christmas at the house so you can light that thing. I mean, it's an RV. You could go full Griswold on that thing.
it is very Griswold looking. And there's been plenty of times where I've been dragging a hose across the back of this thing.
If that's not your like family Christmas card, man, you're missing an
Oh,
opportunity.
it's in the works.
Oh, I love it.
Oh, that right there is an RV, Clark.
You
Don't you
falling
go
in
falling in
with
love
it.
with that thing. Every time, dude.
Yeah.
Never gets old. Never
Yeah,
gets old.
I've heard that a lot in the last month.
Oh gosh, it's awesome.
Yeah,
Man,
It's
Blake,
awesome.
it's been so fun to just kind of get to hang out with you again. So excited about your guide service. I want to get down there, and I want to get on a redfish sometime. I know Brad sends me these pictures some of these days that you guys to go out there, and I'm just every time I'm jealous. I'm sitting in my office like, oh man, I really wish I was down there. So thanks for joining us today.
hey, no problem. You've got about 2 months of prime fishing, so make it happen. Come on down.
There you go. Fairhope Fly Guy is your is that the Instagram handle? Is that right?
Instagram and Facebook, and I've got a website, but I'm still working on getting everything up on it. But
Nice.
the social media is the easiest way to get a hold of me.
We'll have all that in the show notes, man, and I'll look forward to hope some folks take advantage of it. Come down here and experience some good fly fishing in Alabama. You know, everybody goes up and we catch the Cahaba bass and experience all that up there. They need to come down south and experience some delta, some redfish in the marsh. And
Yeah, and if they don't want to fly fish, they can throw a spinning rod. I mean, that's
there you go. That's right.
the sight fishing or the fly fishing. I mean, all of it's good. We probably won't be soaking any dead bait or anything, but
Nice.
we can do something besides fly fishing if they don't feel comfortable doing that.
Right.
Mhm.
That's awesome, man. Well, it's been such a great conversation. Anytime I get to hang out with you, I always enjoy it. And I'm so glad that you took time to join us and just share, your story and what you've been doing and what you're looking forward to doing. And I hope people take advantage of that. I hope they're inspired by the sort of the chance that you've taken, to live out a dream. I love that. And not a lot of people do that, but you're currently doing that. And I love the way you guys live life. And I appreciate your friendship. And man, we hope this inspires people to share their own adventures, to write down their stories and share them in the place we love to call the Storied Outdoors.
If you've enjoyed this podcast, please take some time to leave us a review. Or better yet, share it with a friend. We hope these stories encourage you. encourage you to write your own stories and share your own adventures in the storied outdoors.